Hello and welcome back. It's day 3 of the She Is Me conference special event, a gathering of healers. And I'm so pleased and honored today to be joined by Libby Kahnke. Libby, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Libby is a new member of the She Is Me conference platform. So, everybody, please welcome Libby. And Libby, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lisa. My name is Libby Kahnke, and I'm actually here from beautiful Billings, Montana. The sun is shining right now, and it's glinting off the snow, so it's definitely a sunshiny day, but still very cold. Um, I guess a little bit about myself. I often just sort of describe myself as, a psychic, a business owner, a wife, a mother, and that's sort of my life, I guess, in a nutshell. But I guess I own two businesses if we're talking professionally what I do. One of my businesses is a seven-figure business, and in just the small region, we've done very, very well for ourselves. My other business is Find Your Light. That's my healing business where I work one-on-one with clients. And so that's, I guess, a little bit about my professional life. Like I said, I'm a mother to two beautiful daughters, and they're very gifted as well. And I notice challenges throughout my day with their gifts. So it's always keeping me on my toes. And then, of course, I'm a wife, and he's also my business partner and my life partner. So we are constantly together and living life to the fullest. So my journey kind of started off, I always sort of started, I guess, when I was a kiddo. I grew up in Butte, Montana. It's a mining town here. If you're Irish, you probably have heard of it. Most often is referred to as Butte of America because it is a well-known place. But I grew up there. I had a very pretty good childhood, I would say. My parents were loving and gave us everything we needed. I grew up in, middle to middle upper class. And so, my life was always full of blessings from the time that I was a child. But I always kind of got a sense that there was something wrong with me. Most often it was things that I said, or I was very often accused of having a vivid imagination. Like where did you come up with that? What is wrong with you? It was kind of the pervasive question that was asked of me my entire life. And so from the time that I was a young child, I started to wonder, well, what is wrong with me? Why do I think that way? Why can't you see that? Why am I only seeing it? What's wrong with me? So that was sort of the narrative that I built up around myself as a child. And I guess as I got older, my gifts kind of got, I don't want to say worse because that's not the right word, right? But my gifts became more pronounced, and kind of with that, the more I shut them down with what is wrong with you, Libby. And of course, that was asked of me, sometimes of family members. It was asked of me of strangers. It was asked of me of friends. How do you know that? What is wrong with you? And so it that's kind of what built my self-esteem, I guess, is what is wrong with you. And so I lived my life in very severe depression. I struggled, like I said, since a child with depression. Bipolar is one of my diagnoses. I have several. But I always was sort of on the search to finding the answer to what was wrong with me. And I got to a point, it was shortly after the birth of my now 5-year old, and I refer to it that I was deep in a dark forest, and I was lost and I couldn't find my way out. I couldn't see light. So I basically just wanted to lay down and die. And so I put into motion a plan to commit suicide. I'm sorry, it makes me emotional. Um, And as I said, I live in the beautiful state of Montana. So I took off in my truck with my gun at my side. And my plan was that I was going to drop off my child at her grandparents' house, and then I was going to commit suicide so that no one in my family would have to find me. And someone got word, I guess, and so there was a statewide search for me, and I was found just outside of my parents' property by a federal agent. And so they took me to the hospital where I was evaluated. But my degree is actually in psychology, so I was pretty much able to tell them what they needed to hear to get my ass out of the hospital. And that's what I did. And basically, from that point, I was on a mission to kill myself, and no one was going to stop me. I was very, very upset that my plan was foiled. But at the same time, I didn't feel that I was fully prepared to commit suicide at that time. So I started basically, implementing my beneficiaries, last will and testament, those kinds of things that, I guess are keeping your family in mind. And the last thing before I decided to do it was get pictures taken of my daughter and I. And she was, I think, like 18 months old. So she was just a baby. And up to that point, there was maybe 2 or 3 pictures of just she and I together. Mom's always behind the camera. So I wanted pictures that she could have of me and her together. And so that she would know how much I loved her. And so we did that. And I remember the photographer was taking forever. It took several weeks for the photographer to get me those pictures back. And I knew that I couldn't do it until I got those pictures back. And so the day I got them back was early September. And I was really excited, which is really weird, right? Like, oh, today is the day that I get to leave this godforsaken place. And I looked at one of the pictures, and I realize now that what I had seen was a premonition. But I was staring at the picture, and all of a sudden, it was 20 years in the future. And I was inside of my daughter's body. I was inside of her mind. And I could hear all of her thoughts, and I could feel her pain. She was staring at this picture as a 20-something-year-old missing her mom, wondering why I left her, you know. And the one thing that just shattered my world was when I heard her say to herself, maybe if I was more special, my mom wouldn't have left me. And that completely shattered my mind. It broke my soul. And I always tell people that was the moment that a piece of me did die. I did die that day, but it wasn't the way that everyone expected it to be. And from that moment, I basically got sort of a newfound purpose out of life. My purpose at that time basically became making sure that my child never felt the pain that I felt, and from her, in during that premonition. So I basically started on the mental health journey at that time. In the past, I'd always just treated it as, well, I'm sick. It is just kind of the way that it is, and there's nothing that I can really do. But with my daughter, I knew that I wanted to become the person that I wanted her to become. We just want the best for our children, and I didn't want to teach her things that were going to cause her pain in her life. So I started on a journey of healing, I guess, at that time. And I started going to counseling, and I started taking my meds, and I started doing kind of all the things that you're supposed to do. And I did that for about a year, and I actually had transitioned to a different counselor at that time. In the meantime, I was also seeking out healing from psychics as well, just because I always felt like there was something, right? I always felt that I had something, but I didn't know what it was. And the people that I asked, I grew up not from my parents, but my aunts and uncles. I grew up in a kind of a religious environment. And so psychic gifts were deemed uh, not gifts at all. They're deemed as something that only sinners have. And my aunt has in the past made it clear that means that there's something wrong with me, right? So, but I did seek out psychics in addition to your standard counseling, I guess. And at that time, I do recall one of the psychics saying to me, "Have you ever considered that you're not sick, that you're gifted?" And I was too kind of deep in my dark forest at that time to even consider what she was said or consider what she said as rational, I guess. And so I just thought that she was crazy. But whatever, we moved on, I guess. But then I went to this new counselor, and we always kind of talked about, motherhood and things like that. She really helped me to sort of see the beauty within myself. And she actually posed that same question to me. Have you ever considered that you're gifted and not sick? And well, yes, I have considered, or I have heard that, I guess. I guess I had never really considered it though. But she did ask me that quite frequently, I think probably once a month or so. Um, and I did let it sort of kind of bounce around my head as maybe a notion. Um, about a year into that, then uh, I was actually pregnant with my second child, and so I went to a psychologist, or yes, a psychologist to figure out meds, basically. And he actually was the third person, a medical doctor. He's been in the industry for 40 plus years, and he really knows what he's talking about, right? So he asked the same question. Have you ever considered that you don't need to be medicated, that you're not sick, and that you're just gifted? And for whatever reason, it was that third time, I guess, that it came to my realization that maybe there's something to that. So I started diving into the whole concept of, okay, I'm not sick, I'm gifted. And I, of course, continued counseling, and I started talking to more psychics, more people, more intuitives, and I started asking, I guess, the right questions, because before I realized in my problems with finding my gifts, or I guess finding them in myself, is that I read them in books and I asked other psychics, and the word that we often use is I see, or I see this person, I see this entity, I see angels, I see. And so I thought, well, I can't see those, so I'm not gifted. But it wasn't until I started asking lots of different people, lots of different questions, and kind of dissecting, how do you see angels? How do you see spirit guides? How do you see this? Whatever, right? And I asked them to explain it to me. Um, I guess the best we can with words, right? Because that's sort of where we have a problem is we don't always have words to describe what we're seeing or what we're hearing or what we're, whatever, right? So in this dissection, I guess, I realized, oh, that's what that is. Oh, because it looks like maybe one person's perspective, right? But not another person's. Even though we're seeing the same thing, it's from two different perspectives, two different readers that I guess are seeing the same thing or experiencing, the same entity or whatever. And I guess since doing that, I was able to dive very, very far into the pool of my gifts, I guess. And so since then, I have basically just practiced and practiced. That's why I started my business, Find Your Light, was to practice and talk to people. And my niche, I guess, is sort of reading the energy of the person. I tend to see pain first, right? So when someone comes into my office, I generally assume that they're probably here because they are in pain. Those are the types of people that I attract, are, the people that were in the same position that I was maybe 3 or 4 years ago. People that are looking for a purpose, or finding gifts within themselves, beauty within themselves, and need someone to help them find that, I guess. Um, but I always see pain first. It's sometimes memories, sometimes traumatic memories, sometimes happy memories. But for the most part, it's pain. And what I do is I basically just kind of walk with them, and we talk about this. And then I'm often, I guess, I feel compelled to help them and lift them. This right here is where a belief system was born. This traumatic moment is where this belief system was born, which is generally a belief system that negates, self-worth. And so I help them to, I always call it a woodpecker, right? We all have one. We all have a woodpecker. And it's this woodpecker that every time, something's going right or something good happens, we're inspired, and then bam, we get hit with the no, you're not. No, you're not that cool, or no, you're not that good at that, or no, you get this. We have this woodpecker, this negative commentary that tells us about something about ourselves that I always say it's false. It's an untrue statement from the woodpecker. The woodpecker is a liar. And so it's sort of the acknowledgement of that woodpecker, because we often kind of let the woodpecker just go. We let it, peck at the back of our skull, and we can feel the pain. We know it's there. But we don't really know what to do about it, other than to just sort of let it do its thing, right? So I often encourage people to acknowledge the woodpecker, acknowledge that voice that's telling you that whatever, right? Telling you whatever lies. Because, those lies and doubt, that is the enemy of remembering your gifts, I guess. Um, because I often say that, my business is Find Your Light, but I often say it's not really about finding, it's about remembering. As I stated earlier, I have two very gifted daughters. And my eldest, my 5-year-old, she frequently sees monsters. And I, of course, want to say, "Oh, sweetheart, no, no, no," right? But my I guess the part of me that knows that she's probably seeing something, right? Especially when she starts giving me very, detail, I guess. Mom, it looks like this, and mom, it has this kind of eyes, and mom, she's able to, describe the monster. And so who am I to tell her that she's not seeing something? So I basically treat it, obviously all the time, that she's seeing a monster, and that's terrifying for her. I can only imagine. And so I say, "Okay, love, where's the monster?" "Well, mom, the monster doesn't come around when you're around." Of course it doesn't, right? And so I basically call up a friend who's also a healer, and she's absolutely superb at eliminating, non-beneficial entities. So I basically call her, and then I explain to my daughter, "Sweetheart, let's send the monster to the light. He's upset because he doesn't have any light in his life, um, and so it's approaching a child's gifts differently than we have in the past. I myself was told my whole life that I'm not seeing monsters. I have a vivid imagination, and look where that got me. So now I approach my daughter with, I guess, the compassion that my parents weren't able to give me, right? Because I don't blame them. It is what it is. And that was just the way that they were raised. And, so it does carry down. But I've decided that I'm going to raise my children in a way that has more compassion and love for their own gifts. Because like I said, it's not about finding your light. It's not about finding your gifts. It's about remembering them. My child hopefully will never forget hers, because I have decided to foster and cultivate them. But anyway, so the I guess the whole premise is we're all born with gifts. We all, as human beings, we all have gifts, and anyone who has doubt that that's the case, it's the woodpecker that's lying to them, right? Or a social construct that's saying that that's not, only special people are psychic, or only special people are shamans, or only special people are this and that, right? And I'm not special, so how can I have gifts, right? It seems to always be the question that I get from people when I explain to them that they have their own gifts. But it's all just energy, where everything is made up of energy. We're all energetic beings. This phone is energy, and my light is energy. Everything is energy. And I often say that, magic is just technology we haven't figured out yet. The energy of angels, the energy of spirit guides, the energy of people, of memories, right? um, it's all just energy that we haven't figured out how to read yet. And so what I try to do in my business is obviously explain kind of that science aspect of it. I think very sciencey. And I guess that was always my problem with spirituality, and seeing spiritual gifts, was that I thought that religion and science were two totally different things. And I couldn't, as a science brain, wrap my head around religion, I guess, especially the way that it was taught to me. And so, yeah, in my business, I just help people to see that they too are an energetic being and have the ability to read energy. But a lot of it's getting rid of that woodpecker that lies to us and tells us that we are two-dimensional when we're more than two-dimensional characters in the universe, I guess. So, but with that, I do often tell people I use my gifts to help you find yours. It does seem to be just, I guess, in the last year, I've noticed that pain is kind of the first thing I see, but then it goes to, oh, you are an empath or whatever, right? I can usually kind of tell where, how they pick up energy. Just, I don't know, I guess it's clairsentience. But anyway, that is something that I also help my clients with. I often say that I really hope at some point that I will not have a job in this industry, because I obviously want everyone to see those things for themselves. So, um but anyway, my child is coming in and uh, interrupting my talk. I think she probably knows that I'm nervous, and she has to come in and and do her thing. But anyway, so my whole thing with helping clients is basically just helping them find the beauty in themselves. It took me 30 odd years to find the beauty in myself. And I've even been asked, why did you, I don't know, I guess the question was, why did they let you be in pain for as long as you were in pain? Which, again, we all have free will, right? So I chose my pain. But I do often say that the reason I had to be there was basically to memorize that dark forest, memorize the paths, memorize the trees, memorize the pain, memorize everything, so that I can help my clients moving forward. Sweetheart, you need to leave now. But anyway, so I basically just do that, I guess, in my business. My other business, um uh I work with security, so I help the people find their peace and comfort through the use of security. We, protect everyone's assets, and so, that gives them peace and comfort. I'm very sorry about that. But it goes back to kind of that mission. Earlier on, I said that my purpose in life became basically just making sure that my kiddo never feels pain. But it rippled out to, obviously, I can't make my kid not feel pain, but I can help her not feel that pain of not having a mother. And so now I try and help her not feel pain. I help her to work through it, I guess, just in the same way that I do with my clients. So um, I guess that's really all I wanted to talk about. Lisa?
My mic
There
is
you go.
muted. There we go.
I was going to say, I can't hear you.
Now we're it's just been that kind of a day. Thank you so much, Libby. Thank you so much. That story was so touching and so heartfelt, and I know of at least 20 women who've gone through very similar stories, so you're not alone.
Right.
And I hope that people see when they see this, they know that they're not alone. Um, I I had a similar experience in that I knew that I had these gifts when I was a kid, and I used to get this, "How do you know that? How do you know? You're lying, you're lying, you're crazy, you're weird, I told this story.
Weird.
Yeah, I told the story of doing a seance when I was in 2nd grade, and, like, all the parents in the neighborhood were like, "You can't play with her anymore," because it kinda scared everybody, Um, but, yeah, it's so touching, and I'm so glad that you're so strong and you found your power and that you are helping others now. Um, it's so important. The work is so important, right?
It
The work
is.
is just so important. So, oh gosh, thank you. And I love that your daughter came in. She just sensing that you needed that. And, my
Well, then she sounded like a little mouse, kind of like
it's so
scurrying behind me.
cute. It's so cute. My daughter is 26, and I tell you what, when I need to talk to somebody and, like, really get it out and not feel judged or, shamed or, get honest, positive feedback, she is the first person I go to. So, I am so fortunate that I have that relationship with my daughter. I did not have that relationship with my mother.
Right.
So,
Me neither.
yeah, it is such a beautiful thing, and I cherish it more than anything else in this world. So I love that she came in there. I think that was wonderful. Don't even fret about it at all. All of the
Awesome.
women in this community will absolutely adore this um, walk on from your daughter. So I think it's fantastic.
I love it.
Thank you so much for being part of our community, for joining us, and for sharing your story. I know that it's so difficult to talk about, but it's something that I am so honored and so grateful to you for sharing, because I think it is such a big part of being a healer, and knowing, or not even knowing, that you have gifts and that people
Right.
just don't understand your level of knowing. They don't understand that your level of connection. And,
Right.
like with anything else in the whole world, when people don't understand it, it's wrong, it's bad, it's stupid, you're
Well, and
weird,
the
or
one thing
whatever.
too is, you know, Libby, stop being so sensitive.
Oh, yeah, that was a big
And
thing.
yes, and so I actually use that word now. I'm like, "Oh, you're sensitive." It's kind of about perspective. I don't take the word sensitive as insult anymore, because it's part of a gift, right? There's two
Right.
sides. There's obviously a beautiful side, but on the other side, as you know, you probably know, as a feeler, it can be painful to feel other
Yes.
people's feelings, especially when you don't know that that's what's happening. You're just feeling pain and you don't know why. So,
Mhm. Yeah, I had the experience because I was so in tune when I was very young. I was in college. I was put into the position of being a social worker at a hospital, and I helped people transition. And I mean, I'm 22, 21,
right,
22, 23, and I'm sitting with them. I'm talking with them through the whole process, and I just did it intuitively. I wasn't ever taught how to send people on their way. And
right,
um and I remember at one day, I had 2 or 3 people transition, and I went home and I was so overwhelmed with emotion and so overwhelmed with stuff that was going on. I just stayed in bed for like 3 days because I didn't know how to ground myself. I didn't know how to not take on
right,
things, and I've learned since then. But yeah, was I too sensitive? Yeah, of course. Yes, yes. That's why I
right.
came into this lifetime. So again, thank you.
Yep.
Such an amazing story. Thank you for telling your story. That's what this platform is all about, is sharing our stories. So I appreciate you, and I'm so grateful for you joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. I really do appreciate your guys' time.
And I love Montana so much. I was
I
there
do
in
too.
like the whole month of August. I was in Montana. I just absolutely loved it. So, all right,
Yep.
stay tuned, Libby. We're going to catch up. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks.